This is a topic that everyone's curious about, pay transparency. So there's a pay transparency model that we may or may not get all the way into. But the question is basically, should salaries be transparent within an organization? What are the pros and cons about yes and the pros and cons about no? Summer, go ahead and kick it off. What do you think?
Yes. Well, this is a really great topic that has come up with nearly all of our clients. And, I think the first thing that is very important to understand is that pay transparency is actually a spectrum. So it's really important that when we're talking about this, that we understand that pay transparency is not the furthest, not only the furthest end of the spectrum, which is sometimes understood as all information in regard to pay ranges and employee pay is available to all employees. So that's number one. So the pay transparency spectrum is on the furthest end, exactly what I described, but that there's also different levels in between from, kind of the furthest of the other end, which is, employees have literally no information besides what's on their paycheck in regards to their pay. So certainly there's a lot of ground to cover in between, but I wanted to chat a little bit about this because certainly with pay transparency it's becoming necessary. And I think that companies are taking different steps to get to where they want to be. And, on the furthest end of the spectrum, there's companies, one of them that I've heard is called buffer.com. And they're actually a total open book, Joey. You can go out to their website and they actually list every single position, how much each employee is paid, and the formula on how they arrived at that pay. So, for some companies that are looking at wanting to get to that point, there's varying degrees on how to get there. And I kind of wanted to talk about kind of the good, the bad, or maybe not so bad, and the ugly. So let's go ahead and dive in. When you think about companies like Buffer, Joey, and some companies that may not be the right fit, share with your thoughts about what is some of the good that can come from pay transparency, even if it's in different levels on the spectrum.
Great question, Summer. Pay transparency is, first of all, I think you get to pay transparency after you've answered a few other questions in your organization. For example, is our pay equitable with the market? Are we paying, person A equitably with person B? And then it's on the spectrum here, but do you have a justifiable position for why you created the compensation in the first place? So I think for firms that get to pay transparency that way, the good is that you can feel pretty good about any offer you send, any promotion you give, any compensation related matter that you or action you take around an employee, because the employee knows that you've done the work to get to that number. The other thing about that is it allows you as an organization to know where you stand competitively, and it allows your employees to know where you stand competitively too. That's a good thing if you're competitive, not such a great thing if you're not competitive, but it's always better to know and be able to, maybe you offer different perks, benefits, flexibility that make it better to work at your organization if you aren't as competitive with the market. So those are some things that make pay transparency a good thing, is that if you've gotten there in a healthy way, you've done the work, you're able to defend your policy, and your team knows where they stand in your org and across the market.
I think those are all very important because when we think about, what is the top reasons that employees leave their job, especially now more than ever, the number one reason is that they're seeking higher pay elsewhere. And, I think that we need to be doing everything that we can to retain our employees. And yes, a bit of work that has to go into making sure that your company is in the right place to share some of this information. But if employees understand that they are being paid equal to their peers and they know it and they understand it, then they may be more satisfied with their pay and less likely to look elsewhere. So we chatted a little bit about the good, and I wanted to chat super quick about the bad, aka not so bad. We discussed it does require a framework. You do have to have a well-planned strategy. You can't just decide one day, hey, I'm going to share all of this information and expect that it's going to go well. There is a lot of work and research and communication plan that has to go into this. You need to determine where do you want to be on that spectrum. You need to develop that strategy that aligns with your talent strategy and your culture. That's what we do at Jumpstart HR all of the time with our clients. We help them figure out what is that for them and then come up with a plan to ensure that we can get them exactly where they want to be in the time that they need to be there. And the last item that I wanted to mention in the theme of the good, the not so bad, and the ugly is just mentioning that, Joey, you talked about this a little bit in the beginning, that open salary strategies and even some of the varying degrees to kind of the end of that spectrum, they aren't right for every company. So, if you are a company that has yet to really develop a strong culture of trust and honest, open conversations, definitely not the right fit until you can get closer there, because you need to be able to have some of those tough and honest conversations for it to be successful.
Yeah, and I'll put a caveat on that. I know we're going to land the plane soon, but if you're in a place like Denver, Colorado, and New York City, where you have to have pay transparency on job openings, you're going to be in a pickle. So you've got to get that trust really quickly. And you need to figure out how you're going to set yourself up to answer the question about pay with your internal team and your questions about pay to job seekers who will ask, well, why should I work at your organization versus any other place?